All right. Hello and welcome to this training with Brennan Dunn. I'm Chris Badgett from LifterLMS. Brennan has a tool called Write Message. And if you've been on the internet for a while, maybe you know him from Double Your Freelancing. Is that right?
That's it. Yep.
And today we're going to be talking about doubling sales of your course using dynamic personalization. And I'm super excited to get into this topic. We're all trying to sell more courses, figure out how to do our messaging. When we crack open the hood and start talking to people who are buying our courses or our memberships, we often find that there's not just this one perfect customer avatar. There's like these different groups of people that buy our stuff or resonate with our message or inquire about what we've got going on. So Brennan is an expert on this, and I was blown away when I saw what he's created with Write Message. And I know we're going to get into a lot of the thinking around that and how to actually, apply that to course sales. Before we start, Brendan, thanks for coming. I just want to say welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chris.
And welcome to those of you that are here with us live. I just want to say hello to Allie, Cindy, Harry, Ignatius, Jet, Kana, Lily, Mike, Prayabrat, Rodney, Tess. We've got some more people jumping in. Welcome to the call. Please ask lots of questions. We've got a Q&A box here in Zoom, and there's also a chat. Keep an eye on the chat. We'll be dropping some links as we discuss certain things. And if you just want to chat, let us know what's resonating. Let us know in the chat, and feel free to use the Q&A box. At the end, we're also going to have some Q&A time. There's a feature here in Zoom where when you press the raise your hand button, if you want to come and chat live, sometimes it's easier just to kind of have a quick conversation. We can do that towards the end and get into your questions or your scenarios, and Brendan can help clarify anything that you're curious about. We've got a question from Mike in the audience. Yes, we will be sharing the recording later. You can only stay for about 20 minutes. That's cool. Since you registered, you are going to get a link with a replay. So we've got you covered there. Also at the end, we are going to be doing a giveaway of a LifterLMS add-on. So stick around at the end from that. Let us know where everybody's calling in from. It's always great to see where you are. I'm on the coast of Maine, a small town called Belfast. Brennan's in Virginia Beach.
Right down the coast, yeah. a little bit down.
And oops, sorry about that. I was just saying, tech stuff. Something always comes up with these webinars. So many devices and dings. I thought I got them all.
Yeah.
But take notes on this one. Learning about segmentation in your marketing is just so critical, and it's a game changer when you really get it. And what Brendan's created here is a tool to help you do that and actually apply it is really phenomenal. So, yeah, I'll hand it over to you, Brendan.
Cool.
What are we going to learn today?
So we're gonna cover a lot. So the good thing I think for this group is my background is in course creation. So, and I'll talk about this in a bit. But my first business that did really well is a company called Double Your Freelancing, and what we sell are courses. So a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today comes directly from generating more leads that go into evergreen funnels that lead to courses, along with doing things like modifying course sales pages with swapping out testimonials based off the type of person who's looking at the course. So if you sell these sort of courses online and you do the model of you build an audience, build a list through free content like email courses or webinars or whatever else, and then you funnel people towards buying your course or courses, then you're going to get a lot out of this, because this all comes directly from the last 6-7 years of doing that and incrementally ramping up how I'm leveraging segmentation and personalization to sell more courses. So I've got all the stats. So if you're into numbers, if you're into geeking out on before and afters, everything I'm going to be sharing, or most things I'm going to be sharing, except for a few examples, are going to be backed by internal A/B testing data. So my biggest thing is I've talked to a lot of people over the last year or so about personalization, and the biggest thing is always does it actually make sense for us to invest the time and the development resources and so on to implement this stuff in my business? So hopefully, you know, I don't know the scale of everyone's businesses here. I guess we could talk about that throughout the, you know, throughout the presentation. But, you know, a lot of what I'm going to be talking about, it's going to make perfect sense once I explain it, especially if you've ever done any sort of like live sales, so over the phone or in person. But without any, let's just jump right in if that's cool with you, Chris.
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. All right. So quick overview. In terms of length, 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how long Q&A goes and such. I'm going to be talking about really covering 4 different things. First one is, what is personalization and why should you care, either as a business owner, course creator, marketer. We're going to cover 5 different personalization strategies. So 5 mistakes that people make and 5 strategies that you can use to fix that mistake. And again, all these are backed by data. I'm going to tell you a bit about if what I'm saying is resonating and you want to get started immediately. I'm going to give you some options on how to do exactly that with my software or without my software. And then at the end, we're going to open it up to Q&A. And we also have a state of segmentation survey that we just came out with that we'll be sharing at the end. So if you're interested in just looking at what other people are doing in terms of segmenting their audience, you stick around to the end. We've got that report for you. All right, so I want to start off by sharing a quote from one of my favorite kind of online influencers, if you will. Her name is Kathy Sierra. You might have seen her books. She did the Head First series, which 10, 15, 20 years ago were huge for me in getting, you know, learning how to program and stuff. But this quote actually came from an article that she published, a blog post that she published about 12 years ago. And this was an article about a consulting project she was working on for a major car retailer, where what they were doing is they were building some software to put on kiosks. So when people walk into a showroom, they go to this kiosk, and the very first thing that the software does is it would ask people, why are you looking for a car? Or what do you look for most in a car? Do you care about reliability, resale value, safety, performance? Because we all know that different people have different reasons for buying cars and for making purchases like that. So what they did is they asked people up front, what do you care about? Why do you want this? Why do you need a car? Or what do you want in a car? And then every subsequent question from then on out would be personalized or tailored to that first response. So if they chose safety, the following questions might be, you know, considering you care about safety, comma, blah, 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 blah. It might have stock images of like a kid in a car seat, you know, things that safety conscious people care about. And this worked really well. And the quote that really stood out for me in this blog post was, you know, we all know that how important it is to sell benefits, not features. Like, you know, instead of talking about how long your course is or how many videos are in it and so on, that's all important. But really what people want to know is, how is this going to benefit me? So she says, when it comes to your features and even your benefits, one size does not fit all. Try to find ways to connect what you do or what you have with what each individual finds personally meaningful. So this is kind of going to anchor the rest of this presentation, because my argument is that personalization done right, it's better for you. You're going to sell more courses, but it's better for your customers. It's better for the people who are curious about your courses, because you're going to be able to show them specifically how your product, your course can benefit them. So that's what people care about. The problem is online, we're pretty much doing one size fits all. You have a sales page for your course. It's the same thing no matter who's looking. Are they already a customer of yours? You know, are they this demographic? Are they in this industry or whatever else? For the most part, all of us are doing one size fits all sales and marketing. So I'm going to show you different ways to improve upon that. So unless you have your head in the sand, personalization these days is all the rage. I just retweeted a thing from Industry 18, which is some conference going on in Cleveland. There was a slide that somebody posted about how, you know, Netflix is doing all this stuff with personalization. We hear a lot about this, but the problem is not many people or not many companies are telling you what you can actually do about it. You know, there's a lot of things about how this is the new trend or whatever else, but there isn't a lot of concrete data out there or examples out there. And back in April, a friend of mine, Samuel Kulick, he's really big in the user experience scene. He tweeted saying that the more he researches personalization, the more he's having a user onboarding circa 2013 vibe all over again. There's so little out there, and it's going to be such a big deal soon. So Joshua replies saying, where can I start to look at how to get started with personalization? And unfortunately, Samuel's response was a Google search, which is not a good response. But the problem is there's really not a lot out there, right? So my job with this presentation is I'm going to be covering 5 different things, 5 different mistakes that most of us have, 5 different ways that we can use personalization to fix that mistake. And then obviously I'm going to try to provide as much as I can. And we'll open the floor up to Q&A and everything at the end, but as much as I can in terms of helping you actually fix these mistakes, because these mistakes are holding you back. They're holding you back from sales, from subscribers, and just overall conversions. So a lot of uncertainty about personalization. There are very few concrete how-tos, unfortunately, at the moment. It's not easy, but it is getting easier. Oh, that was you, Chris. So here we are, 5 different strategies that you can use right now to better understand your audience. So this is a big thing. It's important to better understand your audience because you can't personalize unless you segment. You need to know in a very quantitative way, who is my buyer, what do they want from me, and how can I best help them? And then personalization is going to be you coming in and dynamically changing, testimonials, headlines, copy, content, and so on to reflect who they are. So before we go too deep, I want to give you a quick overview of who I am. So backstory, back in 2008, I started an agency called We Are Titans, grew it to 11 employees, got tired of client work. So I started a software company called PlanScope back in 2011, project management tool. It never did super well, but in doing that and trying to promote and grow that company, I started a website called Freelancing, which that's kind of been my main thing that has 50,000 subscribers, more than 10,000 customers, and that's been going for the last 5 years. And in growing that business as a kind of solo person where I've got courses, I create content, blog posts to get people to be aware of what I'm doing, and then I sell them all my stuff. I experimented with personalization as a way to make it so I could get more sales, because that's what, any of us selling courses, that's what we want, is we want to find ways to sell more copies of our courses without necessarily 2xing our audience or anything like that. And last year I co-founded RightMessage, which is turnkey software that makes doing personalization much easier than ever before. All right, so the first mistake I want to talk about is why you should not show the same headlines, especially on sales pages, to everyone. And I'm going to walk through a few different examples. So the first strategy that we're going to cover to fix this mistake is how to personalize headlines based off the referral source. So what you see in front of you is actually Chris and I's mutual friend, Tom Works. He ran an online summit called the 100K Launch School. So you've probably been on the receiving end of this before, and you might have even tried this as a way to build your audience and to sell more of your own products. But it's basically an online conference where Tom approached a bunch of us and said, "Hey, will you give a talk at my conference about launching products successfully?" So this is his headline. This is his registration page to register for his summit. And what he did is he approached all of us speakers and said, "Would you mind promoting this to your list? Can you, email your list and try to convince them to come to the summit? It's free, but we do have an upsell on the back that if they want the recordings, they can pay for it. If they buy the recordings, we'll give you a percent of that revenue." So this model is pretty common where it's kind of an affiliate model in a way where all these different affiliates are driving traffic to the same landing page, the same registration page. But what Tom did differently is he knew that for people like me, my audience is freelancers. My audience doesn't really care, or telling them, "Hey, the next launch you do is going to make you 100,000 plus." That's not a big thing for them, right? Because most freelancers don't have anything to launch. They don't have a product. And so what I did, and what all of us who were promoting it did, is we found a way to take the summit and make it fit our audience. So in my case, freelancers. I wrote an email to my list, or a few emails to my list, talking about how this event is going to help you diversify your income and get away from just making money off client work, and to maybe build your first product and to sell your first product so you can start to slowly move away from being dependent on clients. So I did that, and I sent people to Tom's site. Most people would do the same, and they'd all go to the same registration page. It doesn't matter if you're on a how to be a self-published author list, or you're on a how to build and sell your own courses list. All of us would go to the same registration page. So what Tom did is he made it so that if my list or any of the people speaking, promoting it, who serve freelancers, send traffic to the registration page, the headline and just the headline would change to be about freelancing. So grow your freelancing business with new streams of income from products. That appeals really well to people who are freelancers, right? Because a lot of them don't have products just yet. But then let's say Steve Dimick, who helps authors, self-published authors. He promotes the same event, and Tom is changing the headline for his audience to be learn how to turn your book into a six-figure revenue stream. So if, let's say, someone who helps people create courses, right? Say Nathan Barry promoted, to his list, right? And his list is very, a lot of the people on that are course creators. He might do something like, learn how to have a six-figure launch of your next course. So the idea is, how can we make the headline be more immediately relevant to the viewer? And we're determining that based on the traffic source. And the effect that Tom had was a 44% increase in registrations for the summit. So what we did is we changed up the headline, and then we A/B tested basically, a percentage of traffic not having the headline changed, the other percent having the headline changed. And that the difference between the two, the opt-in rate for the generic headline that everyone saw was about 50%, 47.6. But the opt-in rate when personalized on average was closer to 70%. So this makes sense, if I got referred, if Chris said, hey, I've got one of my students or one of my customers who is looking at Right Message, Brennan, could you talk to them? I'm going to assume you're a course creator, and I'm going to talk about my thing in a way that makes sense for you. I'm going to, introduce it as, maybe some examples of other course sellers who have used our product, and, examples of them, and so on. So we all do this naturally. So what this is an example of is how to do this in a way that scales infinitely. So depending on the referral source, we're changing the headline. And again, Tom got about a 50% improvement in registrations for this online summit just by changing a single headline. And other examples of this are Convertkit. So Convertkit sells email marketing software. Well, their biggest affiliate is a guy named Pat Flynn. So smartpassiveincome.com. Right on the homepage, there's a link to Convertkit. Instead of linking people here, he's linking people here, which is a personalized landing page that Convertkit has built specifically for Pat. It has a quote from Pat Flynn with his picture and about why he loves Convertkit. It has Pat Flynn up on stage. Bloggers and entrepreneurs like you, because a lot of Pat's audience doesn't necessarily see themselves as bloggers, but they do see themselves as entrepreneurs. So the idea is Pat's audience trusts Pat. We know a bit about who Pat's audience is because, let's face it, they're reading a website called Smart Passive Income. They probably care about passive income. So what Convertkit did is they invested the time to build a specific personalized experience for traffic from Pat's site. Now, knowing the team at Convertkit very well, this has had a huge effect on conversions for them. And it's really the same principles that we just saw with Tom Works' Summit applied to a software business. Another example of this is BookFi. So BookFi, I don't know if any of you have review sites that link to your course. Maybe influencers or bloggers have reviewed your course and have said great things, and then they link people to it. What if you could change the headline of whatever they link to reflect that channel, to reflect that acquisition source? So BookFi gets a lot of traffic from Capterra.com, which is a big review site. When Capterra sends traffic to BookFi, they've changed the headline to be from something like, online scheduling software or whatever the default is, to Capterra's highest rated scheduling software. And what they've seen is that traffic from Capterra.com is 300% more likely to sign up. So let that sink in again. Traffic from Capterra.com went from 2.7% of people clicking over from Capterra to signing up to 7.8%. And this is over thousands of data points. So this is statistically significant. That's a huge lift, and it makes sense why. If you're reading Capterra and you trust Capterra, you're reading a review that they wrote about a product, they talk about it and then they link to the product. It makes sense to carry that conversation over. So what we've just seen is we've seen 3 examples of ways that just by changing relatively something simple, a headline, or in Convertkit's case, a headline and a testimonial, how that has such a big impact on engagement rates. So on getting people from those different channels to stick around longer, which in turn makes them more likely to buy or sign up for your list or whatever your goal is with that traffic. So that's the first mistake was, most of us have that same initial greeting that we give to everyone, regardless of who they are. And you can use personalization to make it so depending on who that person is, we can change that initial way we greet them to make them more likely to not hit that back button. So the second mistake I want to talk about is showing the same call to actions to everyone. So I'm going to be talking about how you can use what I call what we're calling dynamic call to actions to position on the fly your opt-in lead magnets. So most of us, we have, let's say, a blog, and this blog has some sort of opt-in. So, the idea is people come to an article and there's a exit pop-up or a slide up or something that is trying to get people onto our mailing list so that we can then, send them emails and hopefully they'll come and buy our course or whatever else. So the way that typically, the way this typically pans out is, let's say I have a question about client onboarding. So I go to Google and I type in guide to client onboarding. The second link is a link to an article on my site. So they click over, and what they're going to get here is they're going to get a lead magnet that is specific to that post, that article. We call these content upgrades. So they were reading about onboarding, and the thing that's trying to get them on my list is a ebook all about onboarding. And that does well. Content upgrades, if you read, what's the guy? The backlinko guy.
Brian Dean?
Right. Yep. So he has a great article about content upgrades, and typically the opt-in rates are upwards of 10%, which is huge, especially when compared to the usual lead magnet that you see on most websites, which is like, hey, join our mailing list or something like that, which you're lucky to get about 2%. So you're getting, most content upgrades get at least 5 times more people engaging with them than a generic kind of universal lead magnet. But the problem is content upgrades are kind of a pain to create because you need to create one per article on your site. So dynamic lead magnets are basically kind of the middle ground between the two. So what they are, imagine that somebody goes to Google and types in, how do I start a freelancing business? They come to this article. If they land on this article, I should be able to assume that they're probably not looking to scale an agency. They're not looking to sell their company. They're looking to start. So just the act that they landed here first tells me a lot about them. It tells me that they're probably a beginner and not an expert. So I can treat them differently. Let's say they do, join my list or something like that. I could speak to them a bit differently. But more importantly, I could change the way that I promote the lead magnet that I hope will get them on my list. So an example of this is I have on Double Your Freelancing 2 different kind of ways that I get people on, or 2 different placements, I should say, that I use to get people on my list. So one of them is every article on my site, there's this little slide up thing. Now this has changed since I did these slides, but it's pretty much the same thing is still in effect. But there would be a slide up that would say freelancers learn how to charge what you're worth. So it's an email course Optin. So I'm hoping people will join the email course, and then eventually they get pitched on the paid course. And likewise on my homepage, if they were to click over there, same thing. What I'm doing behind the scenes though, and I'm doing this using personalization software, is I'm making it so if they come, let's say a web design blog has an article, which a few of them do, that links to my site. So let's say they don't link to my homepage, but instead they're linking to an article I wrote. So webdesigndepot.com has an article about pricing or proposals. They linked to an article that I wrote, give me a backlink. If somebody comes from that site, I'm going to assume that they're a web designer. It's not confirmed, but there's probably a good chance that they are a web designer. So, if, for instance, if let's say, I don't know, like Pat Flynn links to, it's probably a bad example, but if let's say Convertkit links to LifterLMS, well, there's probably a good chance that if somebody from Convertkit.com is sent to your site, they probably use Convertkit, right? So it's the same sort of thing where you're behaviorally profiling them based on how they came to you. So in this case, if they came from a web design blog and then they're reading, the majority of articles that they read on my site are about proposals, I put 2 and 2 together and think, this is probably a designer and they're probably struggling with proposals. So what I'll then do is I'll make it so the lead magnet that promotes the same email course that I promote everywhere will be positioned differently. So, designers, find out how to close more proposals. So the way I promote and advertise the email course is about how this will help you close more proposals. And I use design language and so on. And I do the same thing if you go back to my homepage. The hero call to action there is going to do the same thing. And the effect that has had is a 252% increase in overall opt-ins from anonymous traffic. And that might seem big, but I want you to look at the control and the personalized numbers. So the control is when I don't personalize it at all. 2.1% of people coming to my site would opt in. That's normal. Remember the example I showed you of the typical universal opt-in lead magnet. 2.1% is pretty typical. I've only brought it to 5.3%. It's not a huge jump, all things considered, but I mean, that means permanently I'm getting basically 250% more people coming to my site on a daily basis, joining my list, going into the email course funnel, which is then meaning they're going to be pitched on the paid course. So there's that compounding effect. And all I've done here is I've made it so I'm just changing the way I describe the standard thing. So it could be, even if it's a newsletter, say you don't have an email course, you could say, if they're reading articles about X, describe the newsletter as, hey, get more articles about X delivered right to your inbox. Type in your email address. That's a very simple way of doing exactly what I'm showing you. And you're going to have more engagement because people are going to think, oh, this is for me. I obviously have an issue with proposals. I'm reading a lot about proposals. If I'm being told you're going to get more content about proposals, that is very relevant to me. So it's really about just increasing relevance. And again, the effect there is pretty sizable. So that's the dynamic call to action mistake, or a strategy that fixes the mistake of the universal says the same thing to everyone call to actions, which are pretty much everywhere on the web these days. So the third mistake I want to talk about is showing the same landing page to all paid ad traffic. So I don't know if any of you are doing anything with paid acquisition to get either leads on your list, or maybe you're retargeting people who have viewed your course page and bringing them back to the course page. But there's a lot we can learn about who the ad is targeting and what the ad is saying. And we can create dozens or even hundreds of landing page variations based off that. So I want to give you an example of this. So I'm going to stick to Facebook in this example, but the same rules apply to Google Ads and other platforms. But let's say you're running an ad on Facebook. In this ad, you have two different kind of variations of it, or two different campaigns. One of which is targeting agencies. So agency owners, maybe they like Smashing Magazine and all these different kind of things that agencies might care about. And the other campaign is targeting software companies. So these are people who like, I don't know, whatever, I'm blanking on it, but yeah, interests relating to startups, right? So this is a very common thing that a lot of companies will do. Well, usually these two ads would probably go to the same place. They go to the same landing page, the same opt-in page. But think about this. If somebody clicks on an ad that is targeting, using Facebook's internal data, agency owners, well, there's probably a really good chance that if somebody clicks on the ad, they're an agency owner. You can't query Facebook's data directly, but if they get served an ad and this ad targets a certain type of person, well, if somebody comes from that ad, it's pretty safe to assume that they fit that profile, right? They fit that targeting profile. So that's one thing, is you can use the targeting, and you can use query parameters in your URLs on your ads to do this, to expose data about who this ad is targeting and bring it over to your website. And another example would be, well, let's say we want to go and create variations of this ad campaign. So we're targeting startup founders, but let's say we have a few different variations of the same ad. So one of them talks about building the next big app. The other is about startup founders, and so on. There's language differences with each of these. And the rule of thumb that every marketer knows is that you should have one landing page per one ad. The problem is this. Do you really want to go, say you're using lead pages, it's an example from them. Do you really want to have, let's say you have 5 different campaigns, and each of these campaigns has 5 different variations of ads. Well, that's 25 landing pages needing to be created that are pretty much the same, right? Pretty much slightly different. One might say XYZ, the other might say ABC, and so on, because we want to match the copy of the ad with the copy on the landing page. So you can use personalization software. So this is an example of a customer of ours who is using our software to basically match it to the ad targeting and the ad copy. So when people click over from one of these ads to their, in this case, their homepage, they're just changing up the benefits listed, the headline, and so on, depending on the profiling of that audience. So this is a really good example of that. And it's what it allows you to do in this case is to create, they just have dozens of variations, because again, you can say if it says this and it targets that, well, you can kind of compound these, right? And you can create really a one-off version of a landing page that is super specific to the end user without needing to have all these possible variations of separate landing pages. And the effect for them has been about 110% increase in consultation requests from ad traffic. Now, this is traffic that's been around they've been running the same campaign for the last 3 to 4 years. So it's not like they started this campaign fresh. They've been running it consistently, getting about 20% of people from that campaign booking. And now they're getting 42% of people booking, all by just making it so the relevance of the landing page is much higher. And we actually have one customer who has 1,200 variations of a single landing page, which sounds intimidating and insane, but really all they're doing is they're saying, look, we have all these different kind of pivot points. You know, we have, in this case, they're a fitness company selling, fitness things. So male, female. Males want to see male testimonials because they want to see people like them who have benefited from this fitness stuff. Females want to see female stuff. And then we have age brackets. So younger people want to see people like them. Older people maybe want to see people like them. We have needs. Do I want to lose weight? Do I want to gain strength? And so on. And all of these combine to really create a one-off landing page. So the ad targeting could modify the social proof. So if it's targeting women 20 to 30, maybe we show testimonials from women who are fit that age range. It can also target the benefits. So, if it's targeting a certain type of need, it can, the benefits can align with that. Likewise, if the ad says something about learn how to lose weight or something like that, if they click that ad, they're self-segmenting as somebody who wants to learn how to lose weight. You can assume they have a weight problem. So you can make the headline and the supporting copy reflect that. So another company that's done this is Intercom. Intercom, you've probably seen them or used them. They're the little chat widget in the bottom right of all these websites online. They actually hired an engineer, a developer, to build at a San Francisco salary to build the ability to do this at scale for their landing pages that they're driving paid traffic to. And if you Google Intercom personalization case study, the article that they wrote, which the screenshot comes from, will come up. But they had a 300% increase in free trials from paid traffic. What that does is that makes it so their ad bills are effectively cut in third. 300% more results means that the same ad spend is the equivalent of spending 3 times the same amount of ad spend. So, I don't know how many of you are doing anything with paid ads, but if you are, this is a really good place to start. Instead of toying around with trying to tweak ad campaigns and so on through, say, the Facebook Ad Manager, this is a really nice, immediate way to basically guarantee a lift by making it so your landing pages are much more relevant to the person who's coming from a specific ad. All right, so the fourth mistake I want to cover is treating all of your leads identically is costing you sales and lots of them. So the strategy I want to focus on is how to progressively segment your audience using surveys and behavioral profiling. So we did a survey of our customer base and our audience, and only 75% of the people we surveyed, the only way that they segment their audience is, are they a customer or are they not a customer? And that's it. They don't have any, what industry do they belong to? What's their job role? What are their needs and so on. So most people don't do much segmenting. If they do, it's things like what webinar have they attended, what have they bought and so on, but they're not finding out who are they and what do they need. So I'd encourage you to start looking at different methods that you can use to progressively, meaning over time, profile your list. Because if you can do this, you can make it so when you pitch that next course release, you can say if they're just starting out in business and you're selling a business course, well, you're going to describe your course differently to somebody who wants to scale their business, right? Because if somebody who wants to scale their business is seeing all this language about you're going to learn how to start a business, they might think, and they're probably going to think, this isn't for me, this is for beginners, even though it could definitely probably help them too, right? So, using tools like Clearbit, this is more of a B2B example. So Clearbit might not work for everyone, but you can give them an email address and they'll give back company name, industry, company size, and things like that, which if you're selling to businesses makes a lot of sense. Or you can ask questions when people opt in. So I'm asking people when they opt into my email course, who are they? Or if I already know this info through behavioral profiling, I don't ask them that. So what kind of work do you do? Who are you? And what do you need to get out of this email course? So what are you struggling with right now? And then when I pitch my paid course, it directly reflects that. I could also use trigger links, which are ways that most email marketing software allows you to put a link in that when clicked will write data to that subscriber. So you can tag them, you can write a custom field. Pat Flynn does this really well, where when you join his list, he'll send you an email saying, which of these buckets are you in? And you click one, and that segments you right then and there. So future emails will reflect what you chose. You can use assessments or quizzes. You can use tools like Typeform to do this, where you can get people surveyed. Instead of just collecting survey results at scale, you can make it so if Brennan clicks your survey and he says this and that, whatever he puts in will go and enrich the record you have for him. So now you know in your back end that Brennan is in this industry, this scale of business, and so on. And you can also use on-site behavior, which we've talked about a bit, looking at where people are coming from, the ads they click on, and so on. So one thing that we're doing that's working really well is to be able to ask people when we can't automatically profile them, we have a little widget we've developed that is just a little pop-up thing on the bottom right of your site that you can ask questions of people. So in this case, what kind of work do you do? And this has been really helpful because what's nice about this is if they choose design, we immediately store that data if we know who they are in their subscriber profile. We use Drip, but if you use Convertkit, HubSpot, MailChimp, any of these tools, it doesn't matter. So we sync that immediately. Then if we don't know who they are, if they're anonymous on our site, we'll remember that data until they opt in. So if they opt in a week later, we'll then sync that data back up. So this is really useful. And I've been using it here where if you go to Double Your Freelancing, I want to know, what kind of freelancer are you? Oh, you're a designer. Cool. Then when you move through my website, you're on my products page. You're looking at my courses, in-depth training for the designer who didn't major in business. You're looking at my articles list, articles and in-depth guides for freelance designers. I basically become a niche website focused on design without actually niching the whole site, without having doubleyourdesignfreelancing.com or doubleyourmarketingfreelancing.com or whatever else. So this is really nice. And I'm able to get at a high level aggregate stats. So 16% of my audience is designers. Cool. 25% are developers. Nice. And I'm able to get this data, which helps me make big directional decisions, but I'm also able to individually make my content, my courses, and so on much more relevant. So, one thing that I do that I'd encourage you to do is do something if you're using email marketing software and people join your list, use trigger links to start profiling people. So ask them to, in this case, why did you join this course? Click one. They click one, that profiles them. So now when I pitch them on the paid course, if they chose option A, they're going to get this email. If they chose option B, they're going to get that email, and so on. And that works exceptionally well. And I'll show you how well that works in one slide from now. So, when people join my course, if they say I'm struggling to win projects and want help changing the way that I sell, what that means is they have a proposal problem. They're sending off proposals, they're not getting accepted. So when they come to my sales page for the paid course, the headline becomes, tired of losing proposal after proposal, we've built this course for you. If you have told me that you're struggling with value-based pricing, it's going to be about value-based pricing and so on. If you're looking to just get your bearings because you're starting out, it will change for you. And the effect that it's had is 66% more sales of my course for people moving through that email funnel. So 66% more people who opt into my lead magnet, go through my email course, and then are sent to my paid course. I'm getting a lot more sales, 2.8 to 4.6. This is old data. I'm now at about 6% overall of people moving through that funnel who are qualified, meaning that they are actually opening my emails and so on. They're not just spam people being submitted. I did have a spam issue for a while. But in terms of actual real people opting in, that number keeps going up because I'm adding more points of personalization. When I did the screenshot, I was just changing the headline, but now I'm changing things like social proof. So other people who, if you're a designer, here are other designers who have succeeded from this course. Whereas a split second later, a coder shows up, here are other coders who have benefited from this course. That's been really, really helpful. So I'd encourage you to start thinking about how can you automatically profile people based on what they're doing, based on survey data, based on whatever else. Because if you can understand who they are and what they want, you can better serve them. I'm showing them what they should buy next from me, and I'm making all my call to actions be uniform in that sense by calculating, well, they're doing this and they haven't bought that, so they probably want the all access video pass next. So I keep all of this in a central profile for them in the subscribe record for them in my email marketing software. So the last mistake I want to cover, and then we'll close, is thinking that everyone on your site is anonymous or isn't on your list. It's a huge pet peeve of mine. So how many of you have gotten an email from a company, you're on their newsletter, you click over to their latest blog post. So they're promoting this new thing they just wrote. Click over to their site, and you're immediately hit with a slide down, welcome Matt, trying to get your email address, or pop up or something. And you're probably thinking, you literally just emailed me. Why are you showing me? Why do you want my email address? Most websites optimize for anonymous traffic. You go to a software company, the hero is trying to get you to sign up for a trial or something like that. Whereas if you've been a customer for 5 years, you come back, is that what you should be seeing? So I would encourage you to start thinking about ways that you can display different calls to action based on where somebody is in your sales funnel. So an example of this, I don't know if you can see this okay, but you'll notice I have this little sticky bar. See this top sticky bar? It's asking, should you call yourself a freelancer? Nope, here's why. This is being shown to people who are anonymous who hit this page on my site. But if somebody who is already on my list, but has not bought Double Your Freelancing Rate, which is my entry-level course, when they come back to my site, say they read my blog or I email them my latest blog post, when people who have on my list, but they've not bought my first course yet, I'm giving them a call to action to try to get them to buy the course. Let's say they've bought this course. Well, now I want them to get my all access video pass, which is 12 hours of in-depth video presentations from a conference that I hosted. So depending on, and I have a lot more, this is only a subset of them, but what we've done is depending on where they are in the funnel. So I have a very kind of procedural way that I want people to go, where first I want you on my list. Once you're on my list, I want you to buy this. Once you've bought that, I want you to buy the premium thing, so on and so forth. And we all tend to have a funnel like this. You might have, if you're a course person, it might be get on my list and then join my webinar and then buy my course. And then when you've done that, maybe buy my coaching product or something like that. So a lot of us have a funnel like that. But the problem is most of us have these calls to action on our site that are just trying to get people on our list. So what this is this is a tool called Rightbar that we've built, where you can change, in this case, a sticky top bar depending on where somebody is in your funnel. And this is all synced with your backend. So if you tag them as customer, then we know they're a customer. We can then promote coaching. And if you've tagged them as coaching, maybe there's nothing else that they can buy, so you remove the bar entirely or something like that. So this is a really nice, beneficial thing. And you can even go a step further, because if you remember, I mentioned that I keep all of this data, my single source of truth, where I keep everything about what they should buy next, what they've already bought, and so on. I keep that in my email marketing app. I've made it so when I send an email, when I email my list, my latest article that is pointing my list back to my blog, and again, we do this to try to nurture our list and keep them close, the PS at the end of that email is going to be dynamic. It's going to change depending on where they are in the funnel. So if they haven't bought my course, but they're on my list, the PS is going to be promoting DYFR. It's going to try to get them to, the PS of that email will say, hey, ready to raise your rates and get better clients, click here to get started. So there's a call to action in the email, and depending on, where they're in the funnel, that call to action will change. But then when they go to the site to read the content, the call to action is going to mirror that. So if they're being promoted Double Your Freelancing Rate, when they go to the website to read the blog post, they're going to see a call to action for the same thing. And that's been working really, really well. But I would encourage you at a minimum to make it so, this is Fizzle, this is one of our customers, where what they're doing is they're making it so if they send their list back to their blog, don't show the giant opt-in. Like there's no point in showing, it's a bad user experience to show the giant opt-in. What they're actually working on now is making it so if you're on our list, but you haven't started the trial, make the hero, that big giant opt-in you see on the right, make that trying to get them to kick off a trial. And this just makes sense, right? Like this is exactly what we would do if I had a past client call me to work on another project or something. I'm not going to talk to them the same way I would talk to a referral I just got from somebody I've never met with, right? But our websites generally are optimized to only speak to new people. And that's a problem for anyone who is not new. One example I want to give you, and with some data, is this is a customer of ours who has a musical training website. What they did is they made it so if new people, anonymous people come to their site, they strip out virtually every competing call to action. So the navigation bar you see at the top with home, about, and join, that had a bunch more stuff that they got rid of when, if you're anonymous. So they got rid of everything else that could, even their courses. They just want you to join this one entry level thing. And they've been able to get 55% more people who hit their homepage going to the join page just by removing any competing call to action. So if you have, let's say you have on your homepage or your blog or something, you've got your opt-in, and then you have the thing promoting your course, and then you have the thing promoting your other course. That leads to decision paralysis. So if you can kind of shepherd people through your funnel, you're going to have much better results, because people want to be effectively told what to do next. I hate saying it, but that's what people want, is they don't want to see, the opt-in when they've already done that, when they're already on your list. I want to close by saying that personalization really is nothing new. Again, if you've ever sold anything in person, if you've ever done any of the stuff, around a conference table over the phone or anything like that, if I'm at a conference, I'm going to be hanging out with Chris in Mexico next week. This is CaboPress. These are all WordPress people. If people talk to me, I'm going to assume they're WordPress people, probably WordPress marketers or developers or something. I'm going to speak to them differently than if I was at a web design conference, or if I was at the conference I'm going to be at next weekend, which is about people who want to sell businesses. When people ask me what I do, I'm going to describe what I do slightly differently. We all do this. We all position what we do differently depending on who we're speaking to and what we can infer about them based off of behavior, the event they're at, or whatever else. So this is nothing new. And it doesn't need to be overwhelming. I get this. I've done this long enough to know that at this point, people are like, oh my God, where would I even start? It doesn't need to be overwhelming. When I started doing this, I literally just made it so if you're anonymous, show the opt-in. If you're not anonymous, show the sign up. That's it. Simple as that, right? And then I added complexity over time. And that initial thing worked. I was just talking to somebody yesterday over the phone who, what he was saying is, he was saying this is so cool because everything cumulatively stacks. So you do this one thing, you get a nice little bump in sales or conversions, and then you can start experimenting with new things, and you can keep doing that again and again. And eventually you sit back and you're like, wow, I just did something that's very big and beneficial. But I showed you a lot of these, a lot of the things I showed you, like changing a headline based on where somebody's coming from. That's a 15-minute operation. I mean, that's the thing that, like, who wouldn't want to spend 15 minutes to get a permanent increase of 289% of traffic that comes from this one blog post, this one review site, right? So I would ask you, what can you start to do today that would make your messages and your offers more relevant to people? So, I mentioned at the beginning that this is good for you. Obviously, we all like seeing, hey, increasing conversions, more sales, whatever. But if I'm on a website, if I'm consuming content, I don't want to need to sift through and try to figure out how this helps me. I want to know, if I'm looking at your product, your course, how can you specifically address the need that I have, where I am in my business or my life, how I self-identify, and what I need actual help with. How does your course help me? And most of us do this by trying to come up with the perfect copy, the perfect way to speak to every possible avatar. You do this right, you don't have that issue anymore. You can be a lot more specific, in a way that, again, scales infinitely. The problem is the old way of doing this, when I started out, was to write code. So, up until recently, when I've talked to people and they kind of saw what I was doing or whatever else, their question was often, how can I, what would I do to do this? And unfortunately, my response was hire a developer, which is not a good response generally. So I want to tell you about Right Message because, most of you now at this point know that that's what I do. This software directly came from my own experience wanting to make this easier, where I didn't need to redeploy my whole website in order to make a personalization change. We built software that makes it so you just put a tracking code on your site, and then you're able to visually, as you can see on the right of your screen, change any content, any imagery, any headlines, whatever you want on the page, get rid of stuff based on things like tag data you have about somebody, purchase data, where they came from, and all these different kind of profiling things that we built into the product. I mentioned Right Ask. This is what's really nice about the way we've done things is it's really hard to segment. A lot of companies struggle to figure out, how do I automatically profile people? How do I automatically figure out what do they want and so on? So we've built this ability for you to go and define like, who are the different types of people? Maybe we've got, in my case for W freelancing, designers, developers, marketers, writers, and so on. But then I also have solo people, agencies, people who haven't started yet. I also ask people, what do you want from me? Do you want courses? Do you want one-on-one help? Do you want community? So they choose community. When I pitch them on a course, I'm promoting the Facebook group, right? I'm promoting the Slack group. I'm really highlighting that. So I'm able to, use, in this case, Write Ask as a way to capture this data. So when they're just naturally reading stuff on my site, a little question pops up, hey, which one of these are you? Oh, that's what I need. Cool, bye, thank you. We now have that data. But we're also able to behaviorally profile people based off of, if they landed on the landing page of how do I start a business? Well, they're going to go in the beginners haven't yet started bucket, right? Or if they, came on from a certain ad or whatever else. So this is really good stuff because this has been really hard. I speak from a lot of experience here to write code to do effectively this. One of our customers now, Pat Flynn, is doing exactly this, where when people come to the site, he's asking them 5 different questions about, what state is your business? Do you have a podcast? Do you have an email list and so on? He's getting a lot of data that is now being synced up to his Convertkit account. So when he sends emails or he brings people to his course pages, they're seeing super specific language and social proof and so on that is highly relevant to them. So Tom, the guy who I showed way at the beginning, the guy who ran that online summit, this is just what he said about us. We've increased his conversion rates for that summit by 47%, which led to hundreds of new signups and thousands of new sales almost overnight. Absolute no-brainer. This isn't what I'm trying to say here is you want to, with or without our software, there are other ways of doing this. You could do what I did. You could just code a bunch of stuff and it's brittle, but it works. Regardless of what you do, there's probably opportunities right now that you could be implementing that will immediately and permanently boost your sales and conversions. So in terms of if you don't like the idea of hiring a coder, this is our current pricing, but I don't want you to look at this at all because we're actually about to phase this out. We're getting rid of this pricing. We're redoing it all from scratch. Our new pricing, especially right now for you guys, because we've modified it a bit for the Lifter audience, is $79 a month. Gets you everything I just showed you: segmentation engine, personalization engine, everything. You can change anything on your website, no commitment, anything like that. But we're also going to go a step further, and this is just specific to you guys, but we're going to give you one-on-one onboarding. So, we'll jump on a Zoom call like this with you, go through your course and say, hey, let's figure out what data do you have already in your email marketing app? What data do you want that you don't have? Let's go ahead and start making some experiments, some campaigns for you. So our team, Dana, Amelia, and others will work with you live to do this as little or as much as you need from us. And we're also going to give you a copy of our Personalization Masterclass course. So if what I've been saying is you're nodding your head and you're like, okay, this makes a lot of sense. Obviously, people want to know, how does this help me? This is the answer to making that doable in a way that is low touch. We've created a course called the Personalization Masterclass. We typically sell it for $200 or $197. It's yours free if you sign up with the link I'm about to give you. And the price lock is permanent, meaning you sign up for this, we're never going to raise prices on you or anything like that. So let's jump to questions now. But if you do want to get started, if you like what I've been saying and you like the idea of selling more of your course or getting more people on your list, you can then sell them on your course. If you go to rightmessage.com/LifterLMS, we have a pass we've created for you with that offer that I just showed you immediately available for you. And that'll be available until the end of Sunday night, so end of the weekend. But Chris, I don't know if there's any questions that we could start with. Well, that was helpful.
First, I just want to say how generous that offer is with the onboarding and everything. And thank you for doing that for the LifterLMS crew.
Absolutely.
And for those of you here, feel free to raise your hand if you want to chat live. Some of the stuff, maybe you want to chat. Otherwise, use the chat or the Q&A here in Zoom. But love to have a live conversation if anybody wants to jump up. One question I have for you real quick. For the beginner, if we look at what we want to target to make it relevant, I was kind of taking some notes based on what you were saying.
Yeah.
So one of the things, like, what do we want to segment for or personalize for? the part of the offer to focus on was one you mentioned, like, do I focus on the community? Do I focus on the coaching? Do I focus on the content? Then there's like this buyer type which happens a lot in the e-learning space where, some people are buying the course for themselves, or maybe it's a parent buying it for the kid, or maybe it's an employer buying it for the employee, or maybe it's the employee themselves, and you want to change this. You could really change things up. Then there's skill level, and then there's budget. What are some other, like, to get people's gears turning for, like, options? Like when you showed me Pat Flynn has 1 of 5 questions, like, that's getting really specific. It's just interesting. Like, I was just looking for some brainstorming on what else. What can I target?
A lot depends on what you're offering, right? So if you're targeting businesses, the questions you ask are going to be different if you're an e-commerce company. But usually we break it down into who you are, so demographics or firmographics. So that could be in a B2B sense, like, you selling Lifter. It could be something like, are they an enterprise looking for learning management stuff? Are they maybe a YouTuber who wants to monetize their audience, or they, something like that, right? They want to, maybe they have like, books or something like that, some sort of audience that they want to be able to sell courses to easily, or anything in between, right? So that, that's one thing. I'd also look at what kind of course do they want to create? Do they want to create a course on, a business course? Do they want to create a course on, how to, like, learn a new, like, skill, like, crocheting or something like that, right? Are they trying to do maybe internal employee training? That could be maybe something, right? And and so there's a lot of different things. Like, typically I break it down to, who are you? So how do you describe yourself? Because typically people want to see others like that, right? So if they say I'm a YouTuber, they're going to want to see social proof from maybe other YouTubers who have used Lifter to, sell courses or something. So that's one thing, who are you? Then I like to ask, what do you want? And this is the big thing that I think a lot of us don't do enough of. And that is, people have different reasons for wanting your thing, right? They're in different stages of their business. They, maybe they hate the alternatives. Maybe they hate Teachable, right? Maybe they're on that now. They have experience selling courses. They just want a different platform, and they don't want it to be Teachable.
Yeah, so that's like a migration. Like, are you coming from somewhere else, or are you just getting started?
Exactly. Yeah, because you could then, and you could do things like, let's say you have, to get into the behavioral stuff. Let's say that you have bunch of comparison pages, right? If they land on, like, LifterLMS versus Teachable, well, it probably tells you they're probably switching from Teachable, right?
Right.
So then you can change their entire experience based off that. So I look at, like, the need, like, what is it that they want? Right. And you can use surveying as a fallback if you can't profile them automatically. So typically those are the two things I look at. And, there's a lot of sub questions that can be stemmed from that. So, in my case, again, what kind of business do you run? What stage is your business? And what do you need help with from me? But I also ask things like, at the end of the email course, I ask, now that you've wrapped up this email course, what is the thing that you're still struggling with? So they got a bunch of free content. What are you struggling with distilling this into a system you can use? Are you struggling with, wow, I'm going to need to create a lot of, like, document templates and scripts and so on to make this work? Like, and then if they say I'm struggling with not having a system, right? Lo and behold, when they get to the sales page,
right,
very focused on that, right? And again, this sounds super overwhelming. Like, do I need to have, like, would I have 50 different? Like, it's hard enough to write one sales page. Do I need to do this a bunch of times? But what we found works really well is just to make small changes. So, if they're looking for a system, just change the headline to be about that. If they're looking for documents and templates, change the headline to be, something like that. It doesn't need to be a full scale, like, completely done from scratch type thing,
Gotcha. And just to clarify on the role of the CRM versus Right Message. So the tagging and everything is always, it's just passing through to the CRM,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we don't store any data on our end. It's just literally, we're kind of we sync up and we sync down.
So the job of Right Message is to change the website, basically.
But also so we have synchronizing up. So let's say they land on, like, the Teachable comparison page.
Yeah.
If they end up opting in, we'll then sync that data to whatever CMS you use on the back end.
I see. So if you're in the simple example of prospects and customers, if you detect in the CRM, oh, this person became a customer, the website changes.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. And what's nice is once they're in your CRM, let's say they're on their phone and they like opt into your list that way, right? So their phone, their device, their session or their browser is now linked to that one, that record. So let's say that your subscriber number 123, right? There's now a link between their phone and that. But then let's say they're later on their laptop or something, they get an email from you, and that email links to your site. They click on that email. In that email is the identifier saying this is 12345 or 123, right? So now your desktop and your phone are linked to the same backend record. It's kind of like a user's record, right? So regardless of the device you're on now, if you buy on your laptop and you're back on your phone, you're going to see a call to action about the next thing in the funnel, not the thing you've already bought. So it's a good way to kind of have this kind of uniformity across all these different devices. Obviously if they nuke their cookies or whatever else, that ruins that. But
so it works even if they haven't joined the email list yet. If they're like, oh, I'm into design or I'm into marketing or whatever.
Yeah, because we then just keep it all in local storage on their computer. So we remember all this stuff and we let them profile themselves behaviorally or through Right-Ask. And then if and when they do opt in or convert, we'll then store that data in the CMS.
Gotcha. I had another question for you here. It was really interesting. I get a lot of questions from the Lifter community about, wanting to sell more courses, and they spool up Facebook ads and they do the variations and everything. But so I didn't realize how big this problem was until you mentioned it, which was, it sounds like we're optimizing for, a lot of people are optimizing for clicks, but not actual conversions on the back end. So all this, and then the lead pages example, okay, now I have 27 landing pages or whatever. It's
well, that dovetails. Maria just has to ask a question that I think is exactly that, right? So she's asking, how does the different, we're not a content management system. So I think the best thing, let me just give you guys an example of it live. Yeah. Works for everyone. So I'm gonna go into our own Right Message account. So we're not a landing page platform per se. So you would still have so we have customers who use us on lead pages, on Squarespace, on Shopify, on WordPress. It works on literally any website that allows you to put a snippet in. So if you can put a Google Analytics tracking code or a Facebook pixel on a platform, it will work there. So, lead pages, on balance, all these different things, we all work fine with them. But to address you and Maria's question, so Maria's asking, where do the different pages, landing pages for each different segment sit in the navigation but not visible? Okay, so the best way to explain it, is going to sound weird, is we're kind of like a leech, right? So if I go to rightmessage.com, I go here normally, right? Your website is about to get a lot more personal. So this is our homepage, right? And there's our little widget thing, right? So we have down here, we've got all the different things you integrate with, and we've got, notice this headline. So I just got surveyed. So I'm gonna say I use Convertkit and I run a e-commerce company. So thanks, right? So now let's say I move and I go to the features page and I wanna learn about how to do enrichment. Enrich your Convertkit account, right? So it's now talking to me as a Convertkit person. I go back to the homepage. The smarter way to increase e-commerce sales. And lo and behold, here's Convertkit big front and center. So what I'm doing is I'm basically hijacking the existing website or the existing landing page and making changes based on that. So here, it's slight, but I'm making it so if I know they're e-commerce, they're gonna be spoken to as an e-commerce company, and there's gonna be a lot of stuff about Convertkit as they go through the site. So when people see this, they're thinking, wow, this is made specifically for e-commerce companies who use Convertkit. Well, no, but we work with both of those pretty well, right? So in this case, what we're doing, how that works behind the scenes is this. So this is our website. We just load it up as I would normally. So this is a full editor where I can swap out any image I want, change stuff, move stuff around, whatever. And what I've done here, services companies see this, training companies, so course creators say this, the smarter way to grow your audience and sell more. Let's make it say sell more courses. So we're not a CMS, but what we're doing is we're basically latching on and hijacking your existing website, your existing landing page platform, and modifying the underlying page, right? So
we're switching out headlines, text, images.
Before the end user sees it, right?
Yeah.
So in this case, training companies show up, they see this. Software companies see this, right? And I could say, if you're a training company, the better way to understand your audience, whereas software companies, the better way to understand your visitors. So I'm using language that makes more sense to them. I haven't done it yet, but I'd like to make this image. This is for a software company, but I should probably have, when they choose training, have Pat Flynn down here, an example from him. We haven't done that yet, but that's the kind of thing that really, really works. And again, we're not a content management system. We're just a post-processor for your existing site. So we're saying, if they're in training, and how are they in training? Well, if they have the custom field in our backend of training, or there's a query parameter sent over with biz equals training, or I haven't done this yet, but this is something I should have done a while ago. If they came from, so we have Smart Passive Income, sends us traffic, I'm going to assume that anyone from that site probably runs a training business. They're probably not software companies. They're probably not whatever else. I'm going to speak to them as a training company. So now, if somebody comes from smartpassiveincome.com, they're going to see this headline. They're going to see slight variations as they move across the entire site, not just on the landing page, but really everywhere. Does that make sense in terms of?
Yeah, that is super cool. Another thing I've kind of drinking the Drift Kool-Aid, the chat bot. Yeah. I'm really into Drift, and one of the things I was seeing about their conversational marketing thing is you got to kind of qualify leads.
Yeah.
So and sometimes they make it like, so the contact information changes based on who's the visitor, like
right.
using Clearbit or whatever. But like, so for example, like maybe on your contact page, if they're a more qualified lead, maybe the link to schedule a meeting shows up, versus if they're not, they've got to go through some more steps, make sure they're a good fit before you spend phone time with them or something like that.
Right.
So I was just thinking about how to do that with Right Message on the contact page. Your best leads, you can like put your cell phone number on there if you want to. Right?
Absolutely. And you can actually, I didn't mention it, but you can inject data from your backend. So let's say you have their first name. I could say,
like, hi, Chris.
Yeah, I could do custom fields, first name. So, I mean, that's, it obviously wouldn't say it like that, but
yeah.
This could substitute out as Chris, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can get a little creepy, but
yeah.
To go to your Drift example is people engage with chatbots when they still have or widgets like that, when they have an unanswered question from, like it's still a part of your page, right? So the bottom right, we have Intercom. Right. So people are still confused. They come to Intercom and they're like, hey, can this work for me or whatever? And I look at that as a bug. So if they're saying, hey, can this actually help me? I use whatever. My thinking is there's a messaging problem that led them there. So they didn't comprehend this from the sales page. So they went to the Intercom widget and asked the question.
So you haven't personalized effectively.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. And that's how we figure out. That's how we figure out the deficiencies. I mean, the way I look at it is, the way this kind of started for me was, I have Double Your Freelancing Rate, which is my main course. And when I started out, my background is in software development. So a lot of the examples I gave and the language I used was very developer-y. And then a copywriter was referred to the course. She read the sales page and she emailed me saying, hey, I heard good things, but it looks like all the testimonials are developers and web designers. And it seems
is this for me? Will I give it?
For me.
Yeah.
And I know that anytime, if she took the time to write in how many other people clicked the back button or closed the browser, right? It didn't write in. So, people are always questioning, how does this help me? So this just allows you to do that. And to kind of piggyback off Maria's second question, this happens in real time. So this all happens within usually about 40, 50 milliseconds. And it's completely, the end user doesn't even know that they're being personalized to. So.
Lily has a question. They're launching a membership site right now, and they only have 2 segments. Is it appropriate tool for their sales page? So I mean, you can do like 2 segments, or you can go super deep with your tool,
The
right?
2 segments is great. I mean, especially
Yeah.
if you have a marketplace like buyers and sellers.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's an example of what membership sites for, but I mean, that's huge because buyers have different needs than sellers. Like mortgage companies, the language that a mortgage company wants is if you're a buyer, talk about how we're going to get you the cheapest house possible and, whatever, your dream house. If you're a seller, they want to change your language to be you're going to get the most money as you can, right? So like, I mean, yeah, I mean, this is all natural. I guess my question to Lily would be, if you were you have 2 segments. Let's say you're talking to somebody from segment A in person, then segment B in person, and you're trying to sell them on your membership site. Are you going to explain your site the exact same way to both of these 2 segments? And the answer is probably no. So that's all we're talking about, is just being able to do what we already do offline in a way that happens online.
Yeah, and courses specifically, I think one of the segments, like if you haven't thought about it, or you're not quite sure, one of the things that we see a lot is the type of buyer. So for example, let's say you have some kind of safety training course. If you had the question, or like, are you getting this for yourself or for your employees?
Yeah.
If that's employees, that's about to be a really big sale, and you might want to change your contact details, or do what you need to do to work out a big deal, as opposed to just one sale to one individual that's looking for the training.
Yep, exactly. Okay, so Lily actually followed up. She already has 2 different email series to that segment. So yeah, I see this a lot. You have 2 different email funnels, and they all lead to the same sales page. Now you could, to be completely honest with you, Lily, you could just have sales page A and sales page B, and just say in email series A, link them to this sales page, B, go to that sales page. The problem just becomes, if you want to go beyond those 2 segments and you want to say, well, I have 2 segments in this way, and then I also have these other things. So you can kind of, like with Right Message, you can mix and match. You can say, I have, in our case, we have the CRM they use, we have the type of business they run, and we also have other questions like, what are their goals with personalization? How familiar are they with personalization? And we can create, we can say, depending on their CRM, change the logo wall to just be the big logo of the thing they use. Depending on their business type, change this and this and that. And so it kind of creates a one-off page. And what's nice is, because what Right Message does is it allows you to get data, specifically conversion data, not just like how many people are buying our course, but how does this segment buy relative to that segment? So out of the box, we break down all of the segments you put in, and we show you conversion rates from how each compares to each other. And that's really big, because if like a certain segment is converting really well and the rest aren't, well, that tells you, for the one that's doing really well, focus your energy on getting more of them right now. The ones that aren't doing well, maybe there's a disconnect between, like the copywriters example I gave you, of copywriters see my sales page and get confused, and they're like, this doesn't help me. Now what I'm doing is, when a copywriter goes to that sales page, they're going to see language and social proof and other supporting elements that make it very copywriter-ish. And what has that done? That's made it so copywriters now are converting much higher than they were before. So, I mean, the big thing is just, anyone who sells anything knows how important it is to understand who the buyer is and sell to them in a way that is appropriate to them. So, that's what we're trying to do here.
And I also just wanted to add and get your input on it. This concept, sometimes there's a lot of fear in the marketplace about like Facebook, and they have all the data, they know me too well or whatever. But if you go back to the offline world, like a really good teacher may know that Johnny needs an accountability partner, and that's what we need to focus on. Or Susie needs the best content, or Frank needs actual private mentoring from me, the teacher, needs extra hand holding.
Yeah, right.
This is a natural part of teaching and communicating effectively, especially if you're the leader, because people aren't all the same.
Yeah. So, well, if you think about it, you remember the whole Cambridge Analytica crap, right?
Yeah.
Their whole thing boiled down to a certain campaign, making it so if you really were passionate about issue A, the way they tried to get donations from you was to talk about issue A, and then somebody else cares about issue B. Like, that's to my mind, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's just straight up like, that's what you do. That's, why make somebody need to sift through all the different things when you could just focus on the thing that they care about? Now, how they got that data, that's the dubious thing. But in this case, what we're saying is, if they're landing on a certain page, that tells you a lot about probably what they need, right? If they click a little thing in our survey widget, well, they're definitely giving you the okay, saying, yeah, I don't mind if you know this. Because people want to have a better experience online, right? Like they want to spend less time sifting and more time getting what they need. And we end up having these super long sales pages because we need to cover like every objection, every case study possible from every type of person who might buy it. Whereas a smaller, shorter sales page that's just focused on like, hey, here's what you told me. Here's how this can help you. Buy it or don't buy it, right? Like that's.
Yeah, you've got me thinking about it because we have a super long homepage and there's a section for artists. There's a section for health and fitness people. There's a section for business and marketing people. There's a section there's like the catch-all section. And,
right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so you probably have, if an artist came and it was just focused on artists, you probably would be able to see a pretty noticeable improvement just for that segment, than if they had to see all the other. So a lot of people, I think, get dubious if there's too much like I've had it when I was selling project management software for freelancers and agencies. I remember an agency writing me in once saying, there's no way in hell a thing that helps freelancers can help my agency. And I'm like, you both manage client projects.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Excellent. Well, we just drew our winner. It was Rodney Knox. So congratulations, Rodney. You won the $99 LifterLMS add-on of your choice. If you want something more expensive than that, you can apply it to it. If you already have a license, we can extend your license out into the future. So we'll be in touch with that, or you can connect with us at team@lifterlms.com about that. So congratulations, Rodney. And if we don't have any final questions for Brendan, be sure to check out writemessage.com/LifterLMS. Thank you for the generous discount as well as the opportunity to have custom onboarding with your team. That's super valuable.
Yeah.
And we've got something from Maria here. As someone who gets a headache just thinking about having to build her own website, is WriteMessage a DIY product? And if so, how would you rate it for a novice to use?
I mean, you're seeing me right now, like I'm literally clicking on content and changing it. So it's pretty, if you can point and click, it'll work for you. And all you would need to do, and we have guides on how to get it on your site, is we have a tracking snippet, and you just, like we have it in our learning center. Let me go to that real quick. So we have the presidential alert just went through. Cool. We have installing on your website. So we have things on how to use it with Google Tag Manager, WordPress, Genesis, Squarespace, Lead Pages, Instapage, HubSpot, Unbound. So basically, like, yeah, I mean, you probably use one of these, if not Google Tag Manager. And then we just have an article that tells you exactly what to do. And then it's point and click. You literally in our editor would go to your website here, so like LifterLMS.com, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is their site. It's probably going to complain about the fact that the code isn't there. But that's fine. Yeah, it's trying to. Yeah, so couldn't detect the snippet. Yep. But I can say, you know what? I'm gonna make it so. Remember all that crap about what do you say? Health and fitness stuff.
Yeah.
So we're going to get rid of that. And we're only going to, let's pretend, well, yeah, I mean, I could just go through and say, it's not for, so I can just get rid of it wholesale and then just show the thing that matters to this segment. Obviously, it would be a different segment up here, probably.
Yeah.
But, and I could just point and click my way through,
And change the headline for artists or
whatever.
artists.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you can do that, then,
yeah,
probably use. So yeah.
Yeah, she's saying cool. And even if it's like if you're the type of person who has your tech person and you give them a Google document that has like, okay, here's what I wanted to say for this person. Like as somebody who builds websites, this is something that any web person could implement.
Yeah, exactly. Let me make sure I'm going to delete this because I don't want this to publish, and then it wouldn't do anything your site. It's just extra crap.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Cool. Yeah. So again, if you can point and click, it'll work. And I can change this image to be an artist. I can really do whatever I want to his site.
Well, you've just sold me, so thank you for the custom what you could do to improve your homepage. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for coming. If you're watching this on the replay, there's a link below this video. And that's, if you want to take advantage of the deal Brennan has on offer here, that's writemessage.com/LifterLMS. Brennan, thanks for coming. Thank you everybody for attending. And we really appreciate it. Thanks for the training today. That was really great.
Yeah, I'll see you next week.
All right. Sounds good. Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye-bye.